Okay, so now we're going to dive in and talk about CRUD operations in MongoDB in more detail. We're going to start here with creating documents. So for creating documents, we're going to do a detailed introduction to how we get data into MongoDB. What we're interested in here are specific commands for inserting documents, as well as other ways in which we can create data in MongoDB. We're going to look at the insert one and insert many commands, and also talk briefly about the ways in which new documents can be created in MongoDB through update operations. So as we saw before, we can insert a document into MongoDB using the insert one command. This creates a document in this collection and creates a collection if the collection did not already exist. Now here we're just going to do a little bit of experimentation. Inserting this document first, we can see from the results that the object ID created was this. And if we do a find in this collection, we see that in fact this is the ID that was assigned for that document that we just inserted. Now as I mentioned in another lesson, all documents in MongoDB must contain an underscore ID. This is the unique identifier for a given document within the collection. Therefore, all underscore ID values within a single collection are unique. But we can also insert a document and provide the ID in advance. So let's do an example of that. So what I'm going to do in this case is insert as the underscore ID the IMDb value. You could make the argument that this should be the underscore ID in our movies collection. For a couple of reasons, I prefer not to do that. Not terribly important for purposes of this lesson. But this provides us a good example of a reasonable ID that we might include for all documents in this collection. So now we can see that the response we got back has the same form as what we got back up here. The difference is that the inserted ID value is the one that we specified for underscore ID. And now if we do a search, we see that we actually have two documents. Okay, they have the same data in them. It's because we inserted the same document twice. In the first case, we did not supply an underscore ID. In the second case, we did. So MongoDB does not interpret this as being a duplicate because it has a different underscore ID. In practice, you wouldn't actually have two different documents that contained the same data, but simply had different underscore IDs. And in practice, you'd want to make sure that your underscore IDs were all of the same form in a given collection. I did this merely to illustrate the difference between letting MongoDB create the underscore ID value and inserting an underscore ID value ourselves for the same data. Now, in many cases, we have multiple documents that we would like to insert at once in some sort of batch operation. MongoDB provides a command for that, and it's called insert many. Let's take a look at an example of this command. I'm actually going to pull it up in Sublime Text. So here's an example of insert many. Now I suppose I should point out that I'm using my Movies Scratch collection. That's just so I can easily do a little bit of noodling around here, demonstrating these commands, and then just get rid of this collection without corrupting any data that I actually want to maintain with regard to movies. So the syntax of this command is as follows. Insert many, note the capital M, and then instead of passing a single document as the first argument to insert many, we pass an array. The array can list as many elements as we like. Each element is a separate document that we would like to insert into our collection. And if we scroll down, you can see that we close the array and then close off the command. Now, there are additional options for insert many, and we will take a look at those a little bit later on. So now let's run this command. I'm just going to copy it here and then paste it into my shell. And we can see that what happens here is about what you would expect given our understanding of the return value from insert one. Instead of a single inserted ID value, we have instead an array that lists the object IDs for all of the documents that were inserted. Note that here for these documents that we inserted, we did not specify an underscore ID, so MongoDB created one for us, and insert many is telling us what the IDs were that MongoDB assigned for these documents. Now, as you might imagine, if you're doing this kind of bulk inserting, it's entirely possible that there'll be an error or an exception thrown for one of the documents that you're inserting, especially if you're doing something like some sort of data cleaning operation where there may be some noise in the data or errors of some kind. So to deal with this type of scenario, there are a couple of different options for insert many. So you can choose to do either ordered inserts or unordered inserts. So a good example of this would be if we did in fact decide to use these IMDb values as underscore IDs for the documents in this collection. So let me convert all of these real quickly. Okay, so now I have all of my documents, and I'm specifying an underscore ID value as the IMDb identifier for each one of these movies. In order to simulate the kind of error we might see, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a duplicate entry here. Definitely the type of thing that might happen when you're doing bulk inserts. So let's take the Wrath of Khan movie, and I'm just going to duplicate it here. Now let's go back to our shell, and I am going to drop this collection, so just get rid of the data that's in there already. Now let's take our insert many command and run it again. So this is what I wanted to show you. Note that we got 2 inserted. Okay, so why did that happen? Well, by default, insert many does an ordered insert. So if we take a look at the options we specified here, no additional parameters. So insert many is doing an ordered insert, meaning that as soon as it encounters an error, it will stop inserting documents. So in this case, what happened was we inserted this document, no problem. Inserted this document, no problem. But when we got to this one, because the underscore ID we're specifying here is exactly the same as this one, and because underscore ID values must be unique within a collection, this caused an error, meaning that this command just bailed out. This means that 2 were inserted, but this write error value in the exception that comes back to us indicates that we have a duplicate key error. And in fact, the duplicate key is this one, which again is this, and it happened when we were attempting to insert that second Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan movie entry. Now in many applications, we might simply want our app to keep going if it encounters an error, because either we're fine with the documents that errored out not being inserted, or we have a separate process for dealing with them some other way. So let's look at this same insert many command, the only difference being that here I'm specifying as part of a document that makes up a second argument to our insert many command that we want ordered to be false. Now what this means is that MongoDB will run an unordered insert many command, meaning that if it encounters an error, it will still try to insert the rest of the documents. Let's go ahead and run this now. And bear in mind that we still have those first 2 documents in our collection that were inserted from the ordered insert many request. And just to be sure, let's take a look at what's in our collection. See that we've got 4 documents: Wrath of Khan, Star Trek Into Darkness, and Star Trek First Contact. Those are in fact these 2 and these 2. These 2 were inserted in that ordered insert many command that we ran. These 2 were inserted by the command that we just ran. If we go back and look at the error that we got back, note that there are actually 3 write errors we received. One for the first 3 entries in this insert many command. That's because these 2 were already there, their IDs were already there, so we got duplicate key errors for both of those. And of course, we got a duplicate key error for this one as well. But the insert many command kept chugging along and in fact inserted these 2 despite the 3 errors that it had encountered previously. So for creating documents, we've so far looked at insert one and insert many. These are the 2 principal commands for creating documents in MongoDB. Now, there are a couple of other ways in which we can create documents, primarily through the use of the update series of commands. Update commands can result in documents being inserted. We call these operations upserts. Upserts occur when there are no documents that match the selector used to identify documents that should be updated. We discuss upserts in detail in another lesson. So with this, we've discussed in some detail the primary ways in which we create documents in MongoDB, and hinted at the third way in which data can be inserted into a MongoDB collection. And with that, we've addressed the create portion of our CRUD material. How we read documents from MongoDB is next.